You're at the red light again, the second one this week, and your hands are tighter on the wheel than they need to be. The SUV pulls up beside you, blacked out, freshly washed, sitting a few inches higher than your dented Honda. You do the math without meaning to. What it costs, what you make, how far apart those numbers are. $1,400 in checking. That SUV is probably worth more than your savings will be for years. The light turns green before you're ready. The inches that cost years. The whole drive home, it isn't the SUV you're thinking about. It's how fast your body decided what it decided. Tightened hands, a quick, involuntary glance sideways, a small drop in your chest like you'd already lost something before the light even changed. You didn't choose that reaction. It just happened, the way flinching happens. And that's the part that bothers you more than the car ever could. You think about how this isn't the first time. The wedding last spring, the cousin's watch, catching the light just right, and you spent the toast doing quiet math about your own wrist instead of listening to a single word. The work trip where someone mentioned, almost in passing, the neighborhood they were closing on a house in, and you nodded along while running numbers that weren't any of your business. None of it was new. You just never noticed until tonight how often your brain does this. Clocks something shiny, assumes something true about the person holding it, and quietly files you underneath them. You think about how differently people get treated for the exact same thing depending on what they're driving, what they're wearing, what badge is on the door they walk through. The host at the restaurant who finds you a table faster when you pull up in something nice. The way a salesperson's whole posture shifts the second they clock your shoes. None of it's fair, and none of it's new either. It's just usually invisible, the kind of thing you feel without ever naming it, until a stoplight makes you feel it hard enough to notice. Here's what actually unsettles you, merging onto your street. You've never once seen anyone's bank statement. Not Devin's, not the cousin's, not a single person whose life has made you feel behind in yours. You've only ever seen what they chose to show you. The actual number, the one that would tell you anything real, has never been in the room. Visible spending is loud by design. Nobody leases a car hoping no one notices, which means the people most eager to be seen are telling you the least about what's actually underneath. That thought is still sitting in your chest when you pull into the driveway, cut the engine, and sit there a second longer than you need to before going inside. What the bumper told you. You're 27 and the light turns green before you're ready, but you drive home anyway, with the SUV still sitting somewhere behind your eyes. The laptop is open on the kitchen counter before you've even taken your shoes off. You type the model into the search bar like you're checking a score, like the number won't mean anything once you see it. $770 a month. That's what the lease runs, give or take, for someone with decent credit. You sit with that number the way you'd sit with a bruise, pressing on it just to feel it again. Your checking account says $1,400. You know this without looking. You've known it for 3 days, since the rent cleared and the number dropped, and you did that thing where you just don't open the app for a while. Like, not looking keeps it from being true. You think about Devin from the office, 2 cubicles over, who drives something close to that SUV. Not the same one? Close enough. He talks about it the way people talk about things they're proud of without saying they're proud. Mentioning the trim level, the financing deal he got, like it was a contest he won instead of a number he agreed to pay every month for 6 years. You've never asked him what he makes. You've never needed to. The car already told you everything you were supposed to hear. That's the part that sits wrong in your chest tonight. Not the car. The fact that it worked. The fact that for 1 full minute at a red light, your brain did exactly what it was built to do. Saw shine, assumed wealth, felt small. You're embarrassed by how easy it was. 27 years old and a stranger's bumper made you feel behind in your own life. You close the laptop, open it again. You're not actually going to lease anything. You know that, somewhere underneath the part of you that's still doing math, but you keep scrolling anyway, like checking a wound to see if it's still there. Monthly payment, down payment, the little calculator that tells you what your life would cost if you said yes. Your phone buzzes, a text from your sister, asking if you're still coming Sunday. You say yes, put the phone face down and look at the number on the screen one more time before you finally shut it. Here's what you don't say to anyone, not even yourself in full sentences. You make decent money, not enough to make that lease nothing, but enough that it wouldn't be impossible either. That's the dangerous part. Impossible would be easy to walk away from. This is the math that almost works, the math that whispers you could, and that whisper is louder at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday than it has any right to be. You shut the laptop for real this time. Your dented Honda is sitting in the driveway where you left it, doing exactly what it's always done, asking nothing of you. You look at it through the window for a second longer than you mean to. And somewhere in that look, without deciding to, you start paying attention to people differently than you did this morning. The faucet and the tank. You start paying attention to people differently, and it doesn't take long before Devin gives you something to pay attention to. It's a Thursday lunch, the kind where the break room smells like everyone's leftovers at once, and Devin's talking about the new trim package he's thinking about upgrading to. Not the car he just got, the next one. He says it like it's already decided, like the only open question is which color. You nod along, eating your sandwich, doing the thing you've started doing without meaning to, running a number in your head that isn't any of your business. He makes maybe what you make. You know this from a comment he dropped once about his last bonus, the kind of detail people let slip when they think they're being modest. You're not trying to do the math. The math just happens now, uninvited, every time he mentions something he bought. You think about something you read the other night, half asleep in one of those late scrolling sessions that started after the stoplight. Something like 4 in 10 people pulling six-figure incomes finish the month with nothing left over. 0. You didn't believe it at first. Then you thought about Devin, and the lease, and the trim package, and the way he talks about money, like it's a faucet he's proud of the size of. Loud, visible, running. Nobody ever shows you the tank. Nobody ever shows you what's actually collecting underneath, or whether there's a crack in the bottom letting it all drain out the second it lands. You don't say any of this to him, you just listen, and underneath the listening, something in you quietly recalibrates. That weekend you open an account you've been putting off for 2 years, a Roth IRA, the kind of thing you've known you should do since a coworker mentioned it once, and you nodded and never followed up. You put in $50. It feels almost insultingly small. $50 next to a $770 car payment. $50 next to Devin's trim package. You don't tell anyone. There's no one to send the screenshot to. There's no applause for opening an account with $50 in it. You just close the app and feel something that isn't pride exactly. Quieter than that. More like the first cold edge of a decision you haven't fully made yet. You think about the SUV again. Briefly, the way you'd think about an old habit you're trying to quit. You don't want it the same way. You want something else now, something that doesn't make noise, something nobody at lunch will ever ask you about because there's nothing to see. Devin mentions the dealership again on Monday. Financing approved. He's excited and you're happy for him, mostly in the uncomplicated way you can be happy for someone when it isn't your money on the line. You go back to your desk and check the IRA balance, even though you know exactly what it says. $50 sitting there, doing nothing dramatic at all, and it stays that way. Small, quiet, unannounced, right up until the day your own number gets big enough to actually tempt you. Plausible is worse than impossible. Your own number gets big enough to actually tempt you on a Tuesday in March, the day your raise shows up in your account for the first time. It's not life-changing. It's enough that the math stops being a fantasy and starts being a decision you could actually make. You sit with your new paycheck open on your phone and you think, almost involuntarily, about the lease. $770 a month doesn't sound like a stretch anymore. It sounds like a line item. That's the part nobody warns you about. Not the moment something becomes affordable, but the moment it becomes plausible. Because plausible is so much harder to walk away from than impossible ever was. You tell yourself you're just looking. You drive to the dealership on a Saturday with no real plan, the way you'd tell yourself you're just browsing a menu you already know you're going to order from. The finance guy's name is Patrick, and he's good at his job in the specific way that makes you feel like the deal is already yours, like you'd be silly not to take it. He pulls up the numbers. $770 a month, 69 months, a few thousand down. He says something about how that's basically what you're probably already paying for your old car in repairs and gas, which isn't quite true, but it sounds true in the moment. In the chair, under the fluorescent lights, you have the pen in your hand, you're looking at the line where your signature goes, And that's when the other number shows up, uninvited, the same way Devin's math used to show up uninvited at lunch. Except this time, it's about you. Every dollar of spending you commit to now needs roughly $25 sitting somewhere working for you later, just to hold the line, just to keep that spending from quietly stealing years off the other end of your life. $770 a month isn't $770 a month. It's somewhere around $230,000 you'd need, parked in investments just to carry that one decision without it costing you something bigger down the road. You don't say any of that out loud, you just stop moving the pen. Patrick asks if everything's okay. You say you need a minute, you say you'll think about it. He says the offer's only good today, which is what they always say, and you nod as you believe him, and you stand up anyway. The walk to your car in the parking lot is the longest part of the whole afternoon. Nobody's watching. There's no music swelling, no one clapping you on the back for almost, but not quite. Your dented Honda is sitting exactly where you left it, and it starts on the first try like it always does, and you drive home in total silence, and your phone never rings with a follow-up call you were half expecting. Nothing happens. That's the whole ending of this particular story. You said no to something, and the world just kept going like it never noticed. You go inside, sit down, and open the account with the $50 in it, now grown to something slightly bigger than $50, and that's when the quiet part of your life actually begins. The 15th of every month. That's when the quiet part of your life actually begins, and quiet turns out to be a strange thing to live inside of. No moment marks it, no milestone, no someone notices. You set up the transfer so it happens automatically on the 15th, the same day your paycheck lands before you can talk yourself out of it. Most months, you don't even feel it leave. That's the design. You made saving boring on purpose, so boring it doesn't require you to be strong about it every single time. Devin gets a second car that spring, not instead of the first one. Alongside it, for his wife, something with a payment that makes the old one look modest. He shows you pictures at his desk, scrolling through them with the same pride from before, except this time, there's something underneath it you didn't hear in March. He mentions, almost as a joke, that things have been tight lately. Just a phrase, dropped and moved past quickly, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't already listening for it. You don't say anything. You think about the $1.69 trillion sitting out there right now in auto loans across the country, more than the whole nation owes in student debt. And you think about how none of that number has a face until it's sitting 2 cubicles over from you, laughing at his own joke about being tight. The average person financing a new car this year is borrowing close to $44,000 to do it. You don't say that either. You just nod and ask about his wife and go back to your spreadsheet. Nobody congratulates you for the 15th. There's no applause built into automatic transfers. Some months you watch the number move and feel something close to pride, quiet and small, the kind that doesn't need an audience to be real. Other months you feel nothing at all, just a number changing on a screen, and you wonder if this is actually working or if you're just delaying a version of Devin's joke for your own future to make. That's the part nobody tells you about doing this, right? It's lonely in a way that's hard to explain to people who aren't doing it. You watch friends upgrade apartments, upgrade cars, post pictures from places you'd like to go to, and you say nothing because there's nothing dramatic to say. You're not failing. You're not winning, either, not in any way you could show someone. You're just transferring money on the 15th and watching other people's faucets run louder than yours. You start declining things sometimes, not loudly, not as a statement, just a quiet no to a dinner that's a little too expensive, a no to the upgrade your phone keeps begging you to make. Nobody notices those decisions. That's the whole point of them. They're not for anyone to see. Devin mentions the tight month again a few weeks later, this time not as a joke. You still don't say anything, but you start noticing, more closely now, exactly how these things tend to multiply once they start. The couch that looked wrong. You start noticing how these things tend to multiply once they start, and Devin hands you a front row seat to it without ever meaning to. It begins small, the way it always does. He gets new furniture for the living room, something his wife picked out to go with the new car, and he mentions that the old couch suddenly looks wrong sitting under it. Not broken, not even old really, just wrong now, next to the new thing. So the couch goes. Then he says, The rug doesn't match the couch. Then the side table looks cheap next to the rug. You watch this happen in real time. One lunch conversation at a time, like watching dominoes fall in extremely slow motion over several months. You don't say anything because what would you even say? Stop buying things to match the thing you bought. Nobody wants to hear that from a coworker. You just watch, and somewhere in the watching, you recognize the shape of it. A single decision setting a new baseline, and everything around that decision quietly straining to catch up to it. Devin seems happy about the new car for maybe a month. You notice that too, the way the shine wears off faster than the payments do. By the second month, he's not talking about the car anymore. He's talking about the next thing, some upgrade to the house, like the car already stopped being enough to feel like something. You think about your own dented Honda sitting in your driveway, still doing exactly what it did the day you didn't lease the other one, never once asking you to feel different about it. Then, there's the weekend Devin invites a few people from the office out. His treat, he says. And at the end of the night, the check comes, and it's clear his treat meant the first round. And somehow you're all splitting something that costs more than you would have chosen to spend on your own. Nobody complains. Everyone just pays. You think about how loud he's been about all of it lately, the car, the furniture, the house plans, and how that volume seems to invite people to expect things from him that quiet people never get asked for. You go home that night, and you don't feel smug about it exactly. It's not satisfaction, it's something closer to relief, the kind you don't examine too closely because you're afraid it'll turn into something uglier if you do. You just notice that nobody expects anything from your 15th of the month transfer. Nobody's ever once asked you to cover around because of it. A few weeks later, Devin mentions, quieter this time, that he and his wife are thinking about refinancing the car to stretch the payments out further. He says it like a strategy. You don't correct him. You just listen, the way you've been listening this whole time, filing it next to everything else you've watched happen to him without him noticing it happening. You check your own account that night, the one that started at $50, now sitting at a number you don't say out loud to anyone either. And for the first time, you start to wonder what it would actually feel like to stop comparing your number to his at all. What you don't have to do. You start to wonder what it would feel like to stop comparing your number to his at all, and the answer arrives, of all places, at another red light. You're 33 now. It's an ordinary Tuesday, the kind that doesn't announce itself as anything. You're stopped at the intersection 2 blocks from your apartment, the same kind of intersection from years ago, and a car pulls up beside you. Newer, shinier, the kind of car that used to make your chest tighten without your permission. You glance over the way you used to glance over, and nothing happens. No math, no ache, just a car, next to your car. Both of you waiting on the same light. You almost laugh at yourself. 27-year-old, you would not believe how unremarkable this moment feels. Your Honda isn't new. It's got more miles on it now, another dent nobody but you would notice, and it still starts on the first try every single time, which is the only thing you've ever actually needed from it. You're not driving it because you have to anymore. Somewhere in the last 6 years, that stopped being true, and you didn't throw a party when it did. You just noticed one ordinary day that you could afford something else and chose not to, and that choosing felt like nothing at all, which is exactly how you know it's real. Devin's still at the office, still talking about the next thing, the next upgrade, the next plan to make this month's payment more manageable by stretching it further into the future. You don't feel superior when you hear it now. You just feel a kind of tired sadness for him, the way you'd feel about anyone running hard on a treadmill that never quite gets them anywhere new. You think about the account that started at $50. You don't say the number out loud, not even to yourself, but you know what it could cover now if something went wrong. If the job disappeared tomorrow, if you needed to walk away from something that wasn't working, if your sister needed you for a few months and you needed to just go. That's the part that actually sits in your chest now. Not the number itself, but what the number means you don't have to do. You don't have to ask anyone. You don't have to stay somewhere a day longer than you want to. That's the whole thing. You realize? The thing nobody ever quite explains, right? It was never about the dent in the bumper or the badge on the hood. It was about what was happening in the tank the whole time, underneath all the noise everyone else was making about their faucets. Nobody, at that first red light, could have told you that the dented Honda was the safer bet. You had to live 6 years to find that out for yourself. The light turns green. You drive forward, same as always, nothing cinematic about it. And somewhere past the intersection, a question sits with you that you don't fully answer yet. Now that you have the freedom you spent 6 years building quietly with nobody watching, what are you actually going to do with it? Unseen on purpose. You know now what you couldn't have known at that first light. The shine was never the lie. The lie was thinking the shine meant anything at all. Devin isn't a villain in this. He's just a faucet running loud, the way you almost did, the way anyone can when nobody's shown them the tank. Your Honda still starts on the first try. That hasn't changed. What changed is what you don't have to do anymore, and that's a strange kind of rich. The kind that doesn't photograph well, doesn't get a comment from anyone at a stoplight. Tomorrow, you'll still drive the dented car. Nobody will notice. That's still the hardest part some days, being unseen on purpose. But somewhere out there, at some light, in some car, someone's about to feel small for no reason. You know exactly what that feels like. What you do with knowing that is still yours to decide.